Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Yo, what's up? It's Randy Randall. Today on the show, I have one of my favorite people in the whole world, Mr. Ray Barbee. I'm so excited I got to sit down here in the studio, and Ray was gracious enough to make the drive up from Long Beach here to Sunland, where I am, and sit down with me for a little over an hour and talk about guitars, skateboarding, and photography. Ray really has been a lifelong inspiration for me. I remember growing up skateboarding, and Ray was always younger than the other Bones Brigade members. It seemed like he kind of was the new kid on the team in the late 80s, and felt like I could relate to him a little bit more, being the younger brother, the young kid myself, you know, of the family of skateboarders and surfers and things. So definitely one of those shining lights of culture for me, or alternative culture, or whatever you want to call it, you know, of being able to be multifaceted and just hyper talented, and not, you know, restraining your interests or your pursuits of things to just one genre, you know, being able to cross over and have fun and just experiment and mess around and not worry about having to be the best at any one thing you do, but just really being a well-rounded, interesting, creative person and adding more to the world that way. Let's jump right to it. Here it is, my talk with Ray Barbee. I really can't thank him enough. Thanks, Ray, for coming on. Hope you like it.
In high school, I turned pro for Powell, you know, because I got into skateboarding through a friend who got a skateboard for his birthday. And I'd seen a skateboard before, but it was in the way of the little banana. We call them banana boards, little plastic boards with the, you know, with the slow wheels, and just kind of uninteresting. Just to me, no different than hula hoop But this skateboard that Danny got, it was a Veriflex Vectra, and you know what I mean. It's like, it's those big boards, 10 inches long, 30 inches wide, with these big wheels, and just this like dynamic graphic on it, and I'm just like, wow, that thing might have been glowing at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I think about Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. You know what I mean? They open up the ark, they open up the, you know, whatever. It's just like, wow. And I just knew that, like, okay, like, that you can do something with that. And I knew also that there's something with that. Like, that's a part of something bigger or something. Yeah. There's just something to, you know what I mean? It's
interesting.
Because you hear about these skateboarders or whatever, but you don't know. But I was just like, damn, you know? Yeah. And so anyways, he's riding that, and I'm still on my bike, and I'm like, I want one of those.
Switch over.
And I was telling him, I was like, man, I want to get a skateboard. And he's like, well, my dad used to skate. Like, I think he still has his old skateboard. He might give it to you. And it's so rad, he gave it to me.
No way.
And he had this Sims wood kick.
Okay.
And so it wasn't the banana board, and it definitely wasn't the new board, but it was something
to get you going.
Yeah. It was called the wood kick because you had to put a slab to create the kick.
Okay.
They weren't molding the boards yet.
So you two pieces of wood.
It was two pieces. So they glued it to have the kick.
Yeah.
Because they realized like the kick helps the kick turn.
Yeah. You need something
or carve or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I had that. And then that was in the summer before 7th grade. Go to school, try to hang out. We knew who the skaters and the surfers were at the school. There was what they called the surfer wall. It's like the skater surfer wall. It was kind of more surf, because in San Jose, Santa Cruz is just an hour away or whatever. Yeah. And so we're like, we want to hang out with these guys, like, but we didn't know them, and they're like the older dudes, and we like try to stand at the wall, but on the far side of it. So we want to be a part of it, but we didn't want to get found out that we weren't in.
We're just
we didn't
standing
want
here.
them
No
to be
big deal.
like, get out of
Yeah, no big deal. We're just gonna stand.
Yeah.
Oh, you're standing here. I didn't notice you. Okay,
Yeah. So we're hanging there, trying to like be a part of it, and then someone comes over and asks us like, they just introduce themselves, or we're just kind of like, hey, what's up, like. You know, and then somehow we got talking about skating over the summer, and they're like, oh, you skate? Cool, you can hang out.
Nice.
And those dudes that I always say like were like open arms, like took us into this brotherhood, those are the dudes that became this community that I'm very grateful for, because it's through that community that I felt encouraged, I felt supported, I felt that I was a part of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all those things that really help you explore in life. Because at the end of the day, like, you're exploring. But when you can do it in a way to where you feel free in doing that because you can trust the people you're doing that with, you know what I mean? And
totally,
that community provided that for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And I realized that that's not common.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not common to automatically be able to be placed with so many people that are already like open to you because of this common interest. And I'm thankful for these guys because they have the ability to just, and you know, like our friend Mike Watt would always say it, like, let your freak flag fly. You know what I mean? Settings that are like, embrace that, and skateboarding embraces that. It's like, let that freak flag fly. Like, we're all weirdos.
Yeah.
And when you can feel comfortable in that, then you're able to explore and just be like, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like that thing, right? That definition of punk, you know, it's what you make it. You know, I've always kind of ascribed to that because that just sort of felt right, you know, coming from skateboarding whenever anything got too homogenized or too uniformed. And it's like, oh, okay, I don't think that's the right way to go. You know what I mean? Who's standing out? Who's the square peg in the round hole here? You know, and that's why I was sort of drawn to like Ed and, you know, and the Toy Machine sort of world when that was coming up, and you know, that was like the mid 90s, like, you know, and it felt like there was something, there was a voice there. It wasn't just the same uniform or the same kind of fitting in. I like they've stood out, you know. I think that sort of made an impression.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff's personal preferences and biases and things. You know what I mean? And I feel like typically the personality that's drawn to skateboarding, they have that bent. You know what I mean? Yeah. They have that bent. They have that, you know, they kind of, they see that like, there's something interesting, engaging in that kind of like, this isn't normal. This isn't the normal thing. Like it's out on its own thing. You know what I mean?
But it goes the same with music though too, right? You have people, you know, the bands that are kind of just a little bit out there. Like you can play it safe and play the covers or play something, you know what I mean? That sounds like what you're hearing on the radio, or it's like, oh, this guy's kind of going somewhere else with it. And you kind of just respect the you know, the expression of it. Like even if it's not your thing, it's like, that's cool. You know, you're trying
exactly.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, for me with skateboarding, it's like, it became kind of the vehicle for that to develop. Like I had that interest. I understand that there's that aspect of my preferences or biases towards just something that's out of the ordinary. You know what I mean? Not a common thing. It's like, this is different. That was exciting to me too. Like, this is different. Like, I don't really see this.
Would you skate before school and after school?
Yeah, I would skate to school.
Yep, same.
To and from school.
Same. Those are some of the best sessions. Those early mornings, sun's not even quite up yet.
Get
the
slappies
or just something. Yeah, those are the best. That was the best because you're hyped. You're hyped all day, you know, and like just thinking about it, like dreaming about it through like math class.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I gonna do when I get out that curb? Okay, I hit it a little too fast. It's coming in the wrong angle. Okay.
Slam right before. Like you kind of. I remember sitting in class with like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just
Road
all
rash.
Scraped up, elbows.
Oh man, Ray, you also experienced a huge transition during your skateboarding career, going from the 80s with huge brands like Pal Peralta to the 90s where smaller new brands quickly gained popularity. Tell me about that.
I want to say around 91-ish, Stacy Peralta had left Pal Peralta. And a lot of that due to just kind of the shifting of where street skating was going and new companies coming in. And I just think Stacy was just kind of done because he'd already gone through so many years with the Bones Brigade and we're kind of third wave for him kind of thing.
Was that your first part band this?
Public Domain.
Public Domain. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So Stacy brought the leaves probably around 90-ish or something. And it was just a sense of like, our captain's gone, And so Tommy Guerrero and Jim Thiebaud left Powell and they started Real. Mike McGill left and started Chapter 7. Tony was leaving. Him and Per Willander were starting Birdhouse, Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
And then they were saying, George Powell was talking to Lance saying like, hey, let's do another brand, but let's do it with Powell, just under the Powell umbrella.
Okay.
And then so Lance was like, hey, I might do my own thing under this. Would you want to be a part of it? And I was like, yeah, totally. Because what are we doing? Like, I just felt like we kind of weren't doing anything. And then Lance got to a point where he was just like, you know what? I'm always going to have to answer to George. I don't want that. Like, so he took a loan out on his house and started the firm. A big part of what pushed Stacy out was Steve Rocco coming in.
Okay, yeah.
And coming in, and his way to come in was to make it known. He had to present it as like the big brands are lame. Just like in music,
sure,
where the indie labels are like the major labels are
but
lame.
But he did it was hubris because that happened. He became the big brand.
Yeah, and that's always what happens.
That's it. Yeah.
But this is the start, right?
Yeah.
And so he started taking guys, and that was one thing that it was kind of this unspoken, kind of honored kind of thing. Is like, we won't steal guys.
Yeah.
And when I say we, it was like the industry at that time, which was like what we call the Big Five, where it was like Santa Cruz, Powell Peralta, Vision and Sims, G&S kind of thing. They wouldn't steal from each other because they were kind of like, they kind of had this union-y kind of thing, Yeah. But Rocco comes in and is like, nope, and just starts taking dudes. Yeah. And the whole thing, I just left such a bad taste in Stacy's mouth. And he was already ready to probably be done. And so Stacy had been telling George that you got to give these guys their own brand. Like, they do it under this, but give them their thing. Like, Stacy saw that's the way to kind of function in this setting now.
Diversify, yeah.
Well, just let these dudes. You're creating. It's no different than like the major labels bringing on indie labels,
right?
And so people think it's indie label, but it's still. It's that kind of same thing. It's like, we're lame now because we're the big guys because this is the new thing. So let's create little things to be. And so George would never want to do that. And then when everybody left and Lance was still there, then he was like, let's do it, Lance.
Yeah.
And then Lance entertained it. But what it did was it put the wheels in motion for Lance to do his own thing. Okay. And so it was never with Powell, but that's how it started. And then Lance was like, hey, I'm going to do it on my own. Would you still want to do it? And I was like, yeah, totally. And that's pretty much kind of how the firm started.
That's awesome. And there was such a cool kind of like mod style from that stuff too, right? I mean, it was like the firm sort of had like that kind of like British, almost sort of slang to it.
Yeah.
Like, there was a music sort of crossover-y thing too. I think you got to express that more.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's really cool about, the brands becoming more intimate and smaller now, closer to the ideas of the guys on the teams or whatever, is that now skaters are having to be the owners and the creatives. You cut out the middleman, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And so now all these teams are way more expressive and they're way closer to their interests. So naturally, a lot of that just came out with the firm. And what you're seeing is a lot of our interests, a lot of Lance's interests growing up, loving British punk and all the various kind of appendages that are part of that, the mod stuff with the Vespas and the, you know what I mean? And so those become your resources towards your ideas for graphics and ads and all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Remember, the firm just really stood out at that time. That was kind of right when I was kind of growing into my own identity as my, like, you know, now post 80s into the 90s. Now I was just, you know, I was born in 81. So here, and my brother, I think I told you this before, but my brother had a skate shop,
Yeah,
you know,
man.
from 88 to 91.
Rad.
And so I was kind of the shop rat,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, so
and
I
that was
learned
that time.
Yeah.
When it was shifting,
Yeah.
88 to 91
Yeah.
is the shift.
Yeah.
That's the turn. That's where everything changed. Yeah. So yeah, for him, all that popsicle sticks.
It just
'cause that's
wasn't
what we
with
called
it,
them,
you know?
right?
Exactly.
He's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, and popsicle sticks came about because of the heavy shift to street skating.
Right.
Those other boards functioned for vert.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of changing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so by that time, 88, because I remember my board came out in 89 and I was like, I need a bigger nose. Yeah. And back then too, like I just remember for me, it's like, we'd hop into trucks, man. And
All right.
be like 6 of us in the back of a pickup truck on the freeway.
It was like
heading
Gleaming
over to a vert ramp.
It was like
you know.
Gleaming the Cube. It's like Tony's
exactly,
Pizza Hut
straight
truck.
up, exactly. Yeah. Like you
Yeah.
know, you wouldn't get cops would drive right by you.
No, it wasn't a big deal, right? To
Yeah,
hang out-
because it wasn't the seatbelt thing yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
crazy when you think about it.
I know, right? You think of your
Yeah,
kids.
dude. I remember
piling
we'd be
in,
bouncing,
you know,
we'd be
10
going
people.
through some
Whoa!
things.
We're
and we'd
getting
be,
air.
Yeah, we'd catch it air. We're like, wow, we almost fell out. Hype that never happened
Right.
because we were always so like, that was fun. You know
Do
what
it
I
again.
mean?
Do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're invincible at a certain age, you know.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like,
Unless you get burned.
where was guitar playing again simultaneous? Kind of happen? You said you turned pro looking for guitars.
Yeah, man. I always tell a story like I'm an MTV baby,
Mm-hmm.
and so MTV came out in what, like 81 was it? Somewhere in there, yeah, somewhere
Sounds
around
right.
there. And I'm in 5th grade, and you know, I grew up with a lot of like jazz and soul in the house. My dad, who was a Marine, where he was stationed, they were doing their thing, man. So they had like a jazz band,
Oh, cool.
like boxing ring.
Where was this at?
I forget where he was stationed. He's from Arkansas,
Okay.
but I don't remember where they were stationed. But anyways, he played saxophone, and so anyways, he had like a pretty good collection of records, and so I grew up listening to my parents' music, which was Motown and jazz, and so MTV comes out. Now there's like rock and metal in the house. My parents weren't bringing that in,
Yeah.
but
are you the
I'm getting
oldest?
it from TV.
And you're the oldest of your siblings?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of my.
okay.
Yeah, and so we have 2 siblings. I have 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, and so yeah, MTV comes out, and now I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And you know, because MTV was very ambitious with their goal of 24/7 music, especially at a time when there was like hardly any videos being made
Right, yeah. It's
to promote music. You know what I
It's
mean?
a big swing. Like, we
Yeah.
just create a platform for a thing that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But maybe the content will come right
Yeah,
with, like,
which
we talked
that's
about
what
now.
happened.
Yeah. You don't talk about it like that back then, but that's basically like, yeah.
But what they did fill it with content, and
Yeah.
what they did was basically provided a place for all the labels who created some kind of marketing content for their bands, concerts, whatever,
Totally.
right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so now I'm seeing all these like full-on concert videos. I'm seeing like Iron Maiden, Scorpions, and then those movies, right? Like Let There Be Rock by AC/DC or Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Black Sabbath. I'm seeing all this stuff, and I'm quickly getting enamored by the Guitar Hero. Because I could see the hierarchy in the whole deal. I'm like, okay, the singer's the main guy.
Yeah.
But then there's this dude that comes in for a little bit in the middle of the song where he's the dude. And I'm all, and that's the coolest
spot.
dude.
Pick your spot, yeah.
I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, that's the coolest dude. Like
Yeah,
what he's
yeah.
doing, I think is the coolest. And so I always say that MTV got me excited about playing guitar, but I wasn't able to actually physically hold a guitar until I got into skateboarding. Because I didn't know anybody who had an electric guitar until I met skateboarders, and they were playing in punk bands, and I'm hanging out at the band practices before we go skate the local ramp, and I'm bugging them to show me some power chords. Before you know it, I'm sitting around with you know,
Yeah.
and so it was always kind of around the same time, but then guitar took a back seat to skateboarding the more that kind of progressed in it. And I mean, at the end of the day, skateboarding was the thing. I was just like, I was just like, pfft.
Yeah.
And it took guys like Neil Blender and Steve Caballero to help me see that, like, you can still play in bands and still be like a legit skateboarder, like serious skateboarder. Because it's weird the way you think as a kid, or at least the way I did, was like you thought you were cheating on this thing if you're doing these other things.
Right.
You know what I mean? And those guys kind of helped me see, like, I think it's just, you're just doing stuff. And naturally, skateboarding just took the steering wheel, if you will. But I never had my own guitar. I was always borrowing guitars. My friend Mike, because we played in a punk band when I got into skateboarding and started hanging out with the buddies that embraced me. They're all younger guys too, and they had a punk band called Retaliation.
Nice.
And it was like a 4-piece, but I was always hanging out, and we knew about like the Faction, and we knew about these bands that like they had 2 guitars, bass player, singer, and drummer, and so I cradled in as a second guitar, and but I never had my own equipment. I would borrow my buddy Mike Griffin, his older brother Paul, who had like Mike had a PV 212 maybe,
combo.
like it was pretty
Yeah.
pretty loud, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But his bro had like a little crate.
That's what you got?
And that's what I was playing. I'll play the little crate
Heck yeah.
with some like kind of Kramer, like wild guitar, like
Amazing.
red, like thing,
Sharp
right?
edges everywhere.
But I can never hear myself.
Oh, fuck.
Because they're power. I've just got this
Yeah.
little practice amp. Those dudes are able to be loud, you know, and I'm sitting there, you know, and so the reason I say that is because it's so funny, because we got to play one gig, and it was our friend Joe Cibliano. He had this band called Rage. They had this gig, and they're like, hey, they were super. We all skated together, right? That's one thing I love about skateboarding is like you got all these like you get schooled by these like big brothers, if you will, kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so they're just always super encouraging too, right? And so they're like, hey, you guys, you know, they knew we played and stuff, and they're like, hey, you guys could come open up for us, right? And so I'll never forget like going into practice at their space, and like they had this little setup in like this attic, and we're just all crammed in. We were all spoiled because at Todd's house, Todd was the drummer. Drummer is always the spot where you practice, right?
Yeah.
And they had like a big room and kind of little
cool.
setup. So we were spoiled. So we get there and we're like, oh, whoa, we thought it was the coolest thing. But what's crazy is like now we got big amps, and I'm all.
Oh, you're playing through their set. We're
playing their stuff, right?
Okay.
And so
Marshalls.
So when we played the gig,
yeah.
it was literally the first time I heard myself. And so it was a combination of like, I can hear myself, but then I'm like, dang, I'm playing wrong. like my parts are not working.
You're like a fret behind.
Yeah, it was just like it sounded horrible.
Oh, funny.
I didn't know that I was making mistakes or playing it wrong or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that was super funny that night too is like we burned through our set. I don't know, we might only had like 6 or 7 songs, and probably burned through them in like 10 minutes or something. And at the end, like everyone's like, "Do it again!"
Did you do it again? Nice, awesome. That's so good.
We did the set twice.
Where was that show at?
It was in San Jose at a movie theater.
Oh, cool.
And you know what's funny? My friend Joel Gomez, who Joel ran Sessions Skateboard Shop and did like Sessions clothing, and Joel's done a lot of stuff over the years. I forget what his handle is. He's got this new handle on Instagram where he's just kind of posting old stuff. Recently, he's got a really cool footage of Steve Caballero at Winchester from like 70s something. It's so cool. But anyways, I think either him or somebody posted a flyer from that night recently.
Oh,
and I was
that's
like,
cool.
that's the show. So funny, dude.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it was at a movie theater. But again, like as I progressed in skateboarding, and you know, a lot of my friends that we're playing music with, they were skating vert, and we were getting more excited about street, and one of the things that really changed me from like playing so much was that, so this was all middle school. When it came time to go to high school, I lived close to them, but I was just on the other side of the line to go to the high school that they were going to go to.
Okay.
We went to the same middle school, but then when it came time for high school, it didn't work. You know, it was like, no, you got to go here. I tried to get a transfer, couldn't get a transfer. And the sucky thing about it, the times were different and it was farther. So they got out earlier. I could link back up with them to go skate, but I couldn't link back up with them to practice.
So that was the end of practice.
So that was the end of me kind of playing guitar, because I was only playing guitar through that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happened there until high school, really. And when I say high school, I moved from San Jose after sophomore year to Tustin, Orange County, dude.
Right. Okay.
Craziest
Is that part of the military?
No. My dad was a mechanic.
Okay.
And I got opportunity to start something with the garage in Orange County. Okay. And my mom could transfer.
El Toro's right there too. I was just thinking.
El Toro. Yeah. Foothill. Yeah. But, this is Tustin, Irvine.
Okay. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Santa Ana.
That's cool.
In that zone.
Yeah.
And so getting out there was a trip. There's such a NorCal, SoCal kind of rivalry, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I remember feeling like, dang, like it was a sentence or something, like all my friends were like, dude, you can be SoCal trader or whatever, But I quickly realized like, this isn't bad, because every weekend I'm going to like skate some spots and I'm skating with all my heroes. There's Mark Gonzalez. There's not Escapis. There's, you know what I mean?
If this is bad, I'm with it.
I'm like, dude.
Here's where I'm at.
I'm like, this isn't that bad, man. I'm like, okay. It's really how I was able to get sponsored by Power Alta.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had some friends at school. They had a little band. They were doing like some covers and stuff. And so my one buddy, Tom, who was playing drums, I think I mentioned like, oh yeah, I used to play guitar or something. He's like, dude, come jam with us. And from that, I just kind of started playing again. Like they had a guitar I could borrow. I forget how I got a guitar. I was able to get a guitar. I didn't have an amp, but then I could kind of still remember. Didn't take long to kind of get back.
That's cool.
To power chords at least.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these songs were like, we're doing like Welcome to the Jungle and stuff where it's like that stuff's power chords or whatever, you know. It was like what was happening on the radio at the time. Again, this is like 88, 89,
And then the kind of the third piece I always think about when I think about you and all your myriad of talents is photography. And then where did that come in? Is that an extension from skateboarding?
It's all like it's all one big quilt, right? Yeah. Like all the various patches in the quilt are a lot of these things that comprise of what I feel is the skateboard culture, right? Where it's like music, art, photography, videography, design, all of it, right? That's all the language of it.
Right. It's not just what the guy's doing on the board, but it's everyone else kind of around documenting it, designing the stuff,
in all these, in all these things, I say it's the language because we use language to express ideas and to communicate. And so it's like, I'm so grateful that the language of skateboarding, all of these various aspects of it is how skateboarding is expressed and communicated. And I guess when I say thankful, I'm thankful that guys like so many of the skateboard brands, your Stacy Peraltas, your Brad Bowmans, your Brad Dorfmans, I mean to say, or Fausto. I guess what I'm trying to say is people who created a way to express it to where skateboarders can make a living doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So taking all those different parts
taking
of the
all
language
that and saying like, hey, marketing. Right. It's just another way of saying marketing it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Making it to where it's like Vans, all of it. You know what I mean? It's like, but they created something out of to where guys who do it can earn a living doing it
Mm-hmm.
rather than just have it just be this, you know,
Sort of hobby, lifestyle sort of thing.
yeah,
Maybe actually become a
yeah. But it's like
job
these
and
dudes
get
can do
paid.
that full time,
Yeah.
and you can't do that without the language. Can't do that without that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. Sort of understand the balance of it all. It's like, you know, what's the you know, like,
Yeah,
you
how
know,
do
now it's
what
like,
what you're doing? How do you present that in a way to where other people can get excited about it or have some kind of emotional connection towards it without doing it?
right. And I think this photography is a big part of that.
Yeah. So again,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. So
No,
going
no,
back
no,
to the
no, no. Yeah,
photography,
but it's-
like for me, man, getting the opportunities to see the world through skateboarding, right,
Mhm.
and getting to a point, thankfully, early enough to where I could still capture some of it, you know, was realizing like, dang, I'm blowing it. I should be documenting this. Like, these are memories here. Like, these
just
are
going
like,
on trips and just doing
yeah,
things. You're like,
exactly.
why am I not? Where's my
just
camera?
just
Yeah,
living this life.
Yeah.
And so there was one tour in particular where we were out for like 2 months. And 2 weeks in, one of the photographers that was on the trip, my friend Joe Brook, he had this little point and shoot along with his, you know, what I like to say work gear, like what he used to shoot the sequences of us and get the photos and everything. But then he'd have like a little point and shoot camera, a little snapshot camera, if you will, called the Yashica T4. And I was like, man, just seeing him shooting so much, I was like, because I grew up with photographers being on the other end of their lenses, right? And so I always had appreciation and respect for their craft, because when the photos would come out in the mags, I'd always be blown away, because I was like, dang, like, that's so cool. I didn't think it looked like that.
Yeah, I was there.
How
It
do
didn't
you
look
make,
like that.
I did the trick. I didn't think it looked like that.
It was not
bro.
special. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think it was, you made it look amazing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so I was always enamored with that ability, you know, the way they could see how to capture skateboarding and stuff. But it was easy to just kind of keep that as like, they're the pros. Like, that's what they do. Like, that's it, you know, right? But when you're hanging out with them and you're just seeing how they just use a camera and just everyday kind of things, that I think that kind of inspired me, seeing Joe just kind of shooting everything. And I was like, I think I can do that. You know, and I'm like,
that's not that big.
Yeah, and then I'm like, why aren't I doing that kind of thing?
You don't have to focus. It just click.
Or just like, because I didn't want to shoot skating. I wanted to skate.
You're right.
And so seeing him document everything, I was like, oh, that would be, you know, I think too, just being like, Joe, I can't wait to see that photo of something goofy somebody was doing and he shot it.
Or right.
Yeah,
so it's like an inside joke. You're like, that's the punchline. We got to wait till you develop it.
Yeah, I just want to see. I want to remember that.
Yeah, right.
I want to see that again or something.
Yeah.
You know. And so I remember telling Joe, I was like, man, I'm blowing it, and he's like, man, we're gonna be in New York in a couple of days. I'll take you to this store called B&H, and we'll get you this camera. And sure enough, we got it. And then that camera is, I'd say, is what started it all for me to actually be like, get to a point years later where I'm like, I want to learn to do the real deal, because I knew that was training wheels. I knew that it was doing it for me, and I was getting tired of it wasn't doing what I wanted.
Okay, right. That's the best part too of learning something, when you get to the point where you can see that it's what it's not doing.
Yeah, when
it's encouraging.
When you have ideas and vision, that's everything.
Right.
That's
right.
The gear is subordinate to that.
Right.
Because you can have all the gear but no vision.
You're spinning your wheels.
And unfortunately, marketing tries to flip it to that narrative. Like, it's the gear that has the vision. Get this gear and you'll blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's going to give you, very rarely.
Right.
It might give you an idea because it can do something that something else can't or something. But everything sits, there's no new inventions really. Everything sits at the same thing. Mm-hmm. Typically nowadays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
to where it all can do it.
Yeah, but what do you want to say? What do you want to do with it? What do you want to be? You know,
exactly.
I mean, that's the point. That's always new and invent. And
that's the hard part.
It's capturing the voice of it. Like, here's my voice. How do I express it in this way, or my vision that I see? Like you said, yeah, that's amazing.
Because when I got to the point where I was like, I want to make darkroom prints. You know, I started kind of just yeah, just desiring to like experience that. Like, man, I want to like get in the dark room and see the image come up, and like I just knew it was such a labor of love, and I just knew it was a craft. I think because of skateboarding, the learning curve is so steep that it's just innate that I need tension with what I'm doing. I need it to be hard. I need it to be a steep learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's easy, I'm just kind of bored. I'm just kind of like, what did I do? And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I even struggle, and it doesn't happen too much anymore, but if I have an idea to get a trick, and if I kind of get it first try,
doesn't count.
I'm like, should we even use this photo? Like, was it even, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I didn't have to fight for it. It was just like, so that means like, is it even that exciting? Because it was just like, did I even push myself? I don't know.
Right.
But
Yeah,
what I'm saying, because of that, I see how that gets superimposed into anything I do, or you know what I mean? And so with photography, it's not that I'm looking for that. It's that it doesn't keep me from doing it. And so when my interest leads to that, I'm like, all right, let's roll up our sleeves.
Yeah,
Because
like,
I didn't want to get in the dark room because I'm like, this is hard. I wanted to do it. But when I found out it's hard, I'm like, okay, cool. All right, let's go.
Sounds like it's going to take some
it's
work.
It's going to be even that much better.
Yeah.
Because now you feel like, cool. Like,
pushing yourself.
Yeah, it's that you've never arrived, you know? And that's one thing I love about skateboarding too, is that everybody's functioning in their own deal. In sports, they talk about it. Maybe track has it more so than say like team sports, but personal record, right?
Okay,
personal record, right? Like your PR, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, and I always love that, like skating. If a crew is skating, it's like, you know, because I never forget one time Jason Lee being like, Ray, like you kept rooting this dude on. He was like, you were rooting him on because he was doing good for what he was doing, right? Because he wasn't ripping. But I was like, dude. It's like, because I knew for him, like, I knew enough of his skating where I was like, for him, he's ripping.
This is where he's at.
You
don't get better if you can't be there.
This is his ripping.
Yeah. It's personal record. Right?
Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not like this big, huge competition. It's one thing to be competitive to help encourage one another to do something that you're striving to do, but it's not this thing of like, I'm going to prove this right now in this setting, and I'm going to show these dudes that I'm the dude or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so to me, the funnest sessions is when everybody's functioning in their PRs, and it could be like one end of the spectrum to the other. You know what I mean? But it's rooting on that idea. It's rooting that on.
Yeah.
Rooting on, like, dude, push yourself. Like, dude, you could do that. Like,
it's got. I think it's the same everywhere. You know, you play with better people, and it's how you. I marvel at it myself sometimes. Like, how did I get here?
Oh,
you know what I mean? And it wasn't by plan. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It was like every day became a little bit better, a little bit something. You know, I catch myself.
Yeah.
You know, just one. I don't know. Does that happen to you?
Dude, I'm always driving over right now. I was just like, this is crazy. Just thinking about the reality of like, wow, like I'm so grateful to be able to do what I genuinely love doing.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I'm going to get caught. I feel like the dude that snuck into the party that's like, hey, what are you doing here?
It was the best.
I'm always like, waiting for the gig is up. The gig is up, man. Yeah. Like, oh man, you've had a good run. The gig is up.
That's so funny.
And so funny, but yeah, I'm super, super grateful, man. One thing I've learned is that, thankfully, well, first and foremost, fun is the goal, along with progression, but fun over that. And I feel like one thing that I'm so thankful for with these opportunities, and I don't know if you want to just say career or whatever, it's just relationships, man. It's people.
Yeah.
You know? And I just realized too, it's just like, at the end of the day, people just want to be around people that help towards making the experience fun or encouraging or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's the stuff too, you know, this job, that job, this relationship, that, but the friends, you know, that you make along the way, it's like that stuff,
the
camaraderie,
that sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like,
it's stoke, you know, you pass that stoke on and you're like, yes.
Yeah. Or just people want to be in settings where they can be encouraged at the end of the day.
Yeah.
People don't want to feel, there's enough things out there for people to battle with and struggle with being discouraged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm trying to say it too. I think like sometimes people think it's just all about the thing itself or the ability of that, but there's a lot more that's about what is the posture or what that person that has that, are they someone that people want to be around? Because you could have all the talent in the world, but if people don't want to get in the van with you,
oh yeah,
or what, you know what I'm saying?
Same with the band. You know, I mean, I'd rather play with a mediocre player who I love hanging out with than the shredder that I can't stand being next to.
Yeah,
that's just there's no question about it.
Yeah.
Over all the years, and that goes across all the sound guy, the merch person, to the drive. That goes across the whole board of life, right? I mean, that's how it works. Like you can be really good at your thing, but if you don't know how to
people don't want to be around you, man.
With you,
people feel dude, is this almost done?
Yeah.
Or something. You know?
Well, this is almost done. We should wrap this up. And you're perpetually somebody I always want to be around, Ray. So I thank you for that. You've been a huge inspiration to me in my life and everything I've done. So I just really want to say thank you. You know, to put it on record. I owe you a lot, and I've been very. You've inspired me in so many ways in my life and in my creative sort of journey. Man. So thank you. It's an honor to have you here on the show.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. Those words are way too kind.
No, it's the truth,
man. I'm hyped to finally have an excuse to get out here and see your
let's open up some of these cases. Let's see some guitars.
see your spot. But yeah, man. Thank you, Randy, man.
Cool.
Thanks for having me on board, man.
Thank you.
Super cool. I'm looking forward to all the cool conversations you're gonna have with people along this journey.
It's gonna be a whole thing. Is there anything you want to promote?
It's just r.barbee on Instagram.
All right.
Pretty much. And there's some stuff cooking up, and I'm trying to do a better job of putting that out there on Instagram.
Yeah. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Right on. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you,
dude.
Oh man, there it is. That was my talk with Ray Barbee. Wow. It was so fun to sit down and talk with him and nerd out for a while about all the great stuff. And I feel like that's the part of my DNA, you know, guitars, skating, photography, all the fun stuff that really inspired me from an early age. I think continues to push me down the road and keep me engaged and excited about what's next to come. I really want to say a big thank you to Ray for coming over, for nerding out. We after the mics were off, we ended up doing just that. We nerded out for even a little while longer, played guitars and went through some pedals, and had a great time. It was really fun just hanging out. I think he hung out for like another hour, and I just couldn't believe it. I was so stoked that he came over and was willing to spend all the time, and it was fun. Yeah, we found a really cool fuzz. I let him borrow a Montreal Assembly purple pedal, which is this insane analog kind of modulating fuzz thing with an LFO built into it. It was great just hearing him jam out on it. I even sat down on the drums for a little bit while we were just goofing around. So again, thank you, Ray. That was awesome. And thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next time. Also, I want to thank our podcast partner and swell dudes over at Ruinous Media. You can subscribe to Hyphenate and other music podcasts over at ruinousmedia.com/hyphenate.